Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another Primeval figure. The Raptor was definitely a popular review, and I had many people actually request for more Primeval, so I figured why not grab the Smilodon. I actually acquired this Smilodon with the Raptor when I purchased him on eBay. I got both in the lot, so was happy enough to add both of these to my collection, and of course I can now review the Smilodon for you guys, and you can see it looks pretty darn nice overall. It's actually, I would say, probably one of the nicest Smilodon in my collection, especially when it comes to that Primeval version, that Primeval style, and they did a very good job of sculpting the figure out, giving it some really nice detail and some decent paintwork. Mine obviously is going to have some scuffs here and there through the course of the figure because these figures are long sold out. They're a little bit harder to come by and definitely a bit on the pricier side, but again, I'll take what I can get when it comes to these figures, especially when it comes to a super cool Smilodon. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it, and we'll check it out from there. And when it comes to this Smilodon, I think they did a pretty good job, honestly, on the overall screen accuracy department. For the most part, it looks as though I remember it. I think the only thing that maybe could have improved it would be a little bit more when it comes to the patterning moving through. I feel like there was just more on the actual Smilodon in the show, but I mean, it is a mass-produced figure. I don't expect it to be insanely screen accurate with every ounce of paint and detail, so they did a great job in my opinion for what it is, and it is again very nicely painted. Like, they did a great job on the amount of paint that they've added to the figure and replicating the way it looks in the film. Just could have used a little more when it comes to the patterning, and maybe like smaller bits of the patterning if it was absolutely picture perfect. But you can see when you look up here at the head sculpt looks really good. We've got all sorts of really nice detailing throughout, nice very fine fur. We've got variations of lighter and darker shades of brown, and I like that they've applied some of the browns with like a watered down version, almost like a wash, where you can see that the darker brown kind of allows the lighter brown to sort of shine through. And then you of course have black patterning here and there throughout. The eyes are painted really nicely. You can see a green with a black pupil and then a white spot on the eyes, and there's also a black that sort of outlines the green eyes. That looks really, really cool. And when you look at it from the front, it actually genuinely looks like it's looking at us, which is also a plus, because many times when it comes to toys like this, the pupils are all over the place, so it never really looks that great when it's looking at you, but this one looks pretty decent, I think. You can also see we've got a nice brown for the nose, and the brown nose has a little bit of a satiny shine to it, which is a nice touch. The mouth is sculpted in an open position. Unfortunately, it does not have an articulated jaw, which is actually kind of surprising considering how much articulation is on this figure. I would have expected it to have an articulated jaw, but it does not. However, you can, of course, see our saber teeth are sculpted nicely, and you can see the teeth on the inside of the mouth in general are sculpted nicely and painted nicely if my camera would focus on it. There's no real sloppiness or anything when it comes to the paintwork that I can see. Maybe a few small teeth might have been missed when it comes to the paintwork, actually, now that I look at it. Maybe. It's hard to tell. But you can see that, again, we've got the tongue. Well, maybe we can. I don't know if we'll find a spot where we can really get in there. You can see the tongue in there with the lights just not shining in there enough to really get in there and show it to you. We have a black on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, but again, a nice darker, like maroon type of a tone for the tongue in there. That was quite an interesting attempt at trying to see the inside of the mouth, but considering how small it is, it's not surprising that we can't get in there too well, especially when it comes to the light. You can also see that there's a black that sort of outlines the mouth on top of everything, and then as you lead back, you've got the ears sculpted out. Again, you can see variation of the browns within the ears. We have like a brownish wash that's been applied to the figure. You can also see, again, the detailing back here and the paintwork back here looks really good. Again, very fine fur, except for as you lead down here, you can see it starts to get a little bit shaggier. We have a white running along the front, and then it follows along the lower part of our Smilodon. We also have neck articulation right here, which is a nice addition. You can see you can get a nice left and right, as well as up and down, and it can swivel So you've got that going for it as well if you want to snap the neck of the Smilodon. But that definitely helps to add a nice bit of posability to it. And the fact that it can kind of turn left and right is something that the Raptor did not include. So it is nice to have that on the Smilodon. As you move back a little bit further, you start to see the fur kind of sticking up here on the back of the Smilodon, becoming much more impressive in size up there on the back. It also sports a much darker variation of brown. You also begin to pick up the patterning, which has a mixture of black kind of outlining the darker brown, and there's also white spots showing up here and there that are also outlined with the black. So again, an extraordinary amount of paintwork on the figure like you often find when it comes to these Primeval figures. We do also have another area of articulation right here, but it's super stiff. There we go. We got it to move down. So you can go down and up in this area of the neck as well. So that allows even more posability again for your Smilodon, which is definitely really cool. And they've also allowed you to articulate it in a really crafty way where you can see that this fur kind of leading down here along the back follows through and doesn't look like out of place or anything, if you ask me. So that was really nice articulation in that area. Definitely pretty excited about how they did that. But as you move down the front leg, you can see it looks very nice and strong. Also, again, nicely painted, nicely detailed. As you lead down, you've got articulation, of course, right here. So you can move it forward and back and completely swivel around potentially. Yep, absolutely back to where we started. And then you also have elbow articulation, which goes forward. And that's as far back as it goes, so it's a little limited, but it is at least another area of articulation. As you lead down into the foot, you can see the toes are sculpted out and kind of see them there. You can also see the nails are painted with a black and then given a light sort of an off-white tone, and they sport a nice gloss coat to them, which is a huge plus. Again, very impressive considering its time, how good this figure is. You see more kind of scruffy fur and stuff down here on the underside of our Smilodon. Again, that nice white tone down there. As you lead back up here into the stomach, you see more of the variations of browns. They did a very good job of adding in variations of color with like washes and stuff on this figure, which isn't something that you usually see too often when it comes to figures like this. And then as you lead back into the rear leg, you have kind of like some wavy fur hanging off of the back of the leg back here as well. And again, the patterning and stuff as you move down, you've also got articulation right here. It can go back about that far and forward about that far, and that's really about it. So the rear legs are definitely very limited, and the legs have to consistently be kind of, extended out a little bit further than they probably should be, kind of making it look like the Smilodon is in a bit of a ferocious appearance, like it's getting ready to attack. But I would have really enjoyed the ability to kind of move the legs forward more and just kind of alter that pose. But as you move down, you do have another area of articulation right here, which can go forward and back, about that far back, but that far forward. Again, not the greatest articulation, but it is fun to have it on there at least. And you can see the nails again are painted the same way as we saw on the front. You can see the toes again back here on the rear leg. And then you lead up, you've got a nice tail sticking out here in the back of our Smilodon. A little bit more of that patterning moving back out there as well. And again, the underside also looks really quite nice when it comes to both the detailing and paintwork. Not a whole lot going on the underside besides the white coloration though. And then when you turn it around, again, you're not really going to see much of anything different because it is an articulated posable figure. So it's pretty much in a stagnant position until you decide to articulate it. But overall, again, for what it is a really, really cool figure, and another one that I am beyond hyped to now add to my collection. As far as a size goes, for a length on our Smilodon, you are looking at, actually probably the leg would be the longest point, about 6 inches or around 15.5 centimeters. And then the highest point, now I messed it up, would be maybe the, I don't even know, maybe the ear. So we'll just go to the ear. You're looking at a little under, or actually closer to 2 1/4. I was going to say a little under 2.5, but actually closer to 2 1/4 inches or a hair over 6 centimeters. For a size comparison, here we have Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Primeval Smilodon. And you can see it's not the largest Smilodon in the world. It's a bit on the smaller side, but it's not super tiny either. And to show you that in comparison to a few other Smilodon, first of all, we have the Takara Tomy version. Obviously, this version is far smaller than our Primeval version, and, I would expect it to be, since the Primeval version is, more of an articulated action figure, although I guess technically so is the Takara Tomy version, even though it's a little bit of a smaller articulated version with much less articulation. It only really has jaw articulation. But again, the Takara Tomy figures as a whole are usually a good bit smaller. We've also got the Mojo Fun version, which you can see these two are pretty similar in size. Lengthwise would probably go to Primeval, but height-wise, just with the shoulders, would go to Mojo Fun. We've also got the Papo Smilodon, the female version, and this time you can definitely see that these two look like they're pretty close to being the same size, like extremely, extremely similar in size. And then one final size comparison here, we'll see the Primeval Raptor next to the Primeval Smilodon, just to give you an idea of how these figures size up next to each other if you happen to have maybe the Raptor and you're considering grabbing the Smilodon, or you have the Smilodon and you're considering grabbing the Raptor. This should give you a pretty good idea, I think, of the size. So again, another really cool Primeval figure, and at this point I am very much so invested in this line. It's a line that I previously have only had the human figures from, because I was able to acquire them quite a few years ago in a lot where I got all of the human figures for the most part all together, but not all of them actually, just most of them. But again, I definitely always wanted to get my hands on some of the creatures from the film. Of course, the Raptor was my main priority. That was the one I wanted more than anything. But now, after actually having the Raptor and now having the Smilodon, I really want to get my hands on some more of them. And if I do, of course, I will put reviews up for them here on the channel for you guys if you'd like to see them. But the Smilodon, again, is really cool. I would say it's not quite as nice as we saw for that Raptor. That Raptor was absolute magic. The Smilodon is really cool, but definitely has some limitations to it, especially when it comes to the articulation. A lot of the articulated areas, although they work okay, aren't the greatest because they don't have that much mobility to them, and you can't really get too many different poses or displays out of this Smilodon. That said, some of the areas of articulation are also quite nice, like up in the head and neck area I think is pretty good, but the legs specifically are a little limited. The sculpt is very nice. I think the sculpt overall resembles the Smilodon from the show pretty nicely and definitely has a very, very highly detailed look. When you look at the fur, I think the fur looks honestly fantastic through almost the entire figure. And we have some very nice paintwork. Again, the paintwork certainly does resemble the Smilodon, especially when it comes to the tones of color. The Smilodon in the film, the only thing, or I should say the show, the only thing different would be the fact that it has a bit more when it comes to the patterning. But considering this is a mass-produced figure that, again, was painted at a factory and everything, I don't expect it to look absolutely picture-perfect, even though the Raptor, for the most part, did. But for what it is, I feel like they captured the likeness paint-wise as well quite nicely. They have a lot of variation of color and very nice, precise paintwork, as well as, again, that fully painted look and feel. So, yet again, another super cool Primeval figure. It's not as nice as the Raptor, but it is still a darn nice figure, and definitely one that I would say is worthy of adding to any collection, especially if it is, in fact, a Primeval collection. So if you are interested, I will try to find a link to include in the description. This one should be a little easier to find compared to the Raptor, which is nearly impossible to find. But if I can find a link, again, I will include it in the description to the cheapest one that I can find. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.